You also have developments like this. Navalny is he's a CIA asset, and his organizations, his various organizations, have been funded by the National Endowment for Democracy. Similarly, Vox Ukraine is a National Endowment for Democracy funded organization, think tank, and they came out with this network of Russian propaganda, what connects Western quote unquote experts promoting narratives beneficial to Russia. And I just wanted to show the audience this. So this is the network of pro-Russian disinformation in the West. And you see a lot of very prominent people. You might recognize a couple of them. There I am. And then Scott, I believe, where are you, Scott? I can't see you. You're definitely
I'm at the very top, right next to
You're at the top. You're number one. You're in red. I'm
evil. I'm evil.
You're not
baby.
only in red, you have look at these lines, and for me, I have lines everywhere to Ray McGovern, to Pepe Escobar. They obviously did a brief look at my channel. So this is information warfare. And I wanted your reaction just to this real quick while I sift through these questions, because for me, this is what I feel like always intensifies when the United States, when NATO, when the neocons, when they have trouble in basically every single other area, they latch on to information warfare in order to redirect, misdirect from their failures. But your take, Scott.
Well, it's interesting because you were talking about Julian Assange and freedom of speech. There's different ways to suppress freedom of speech. In America, we like to say, oh, there's freedom of speech. Well, there is, but there isn't. For instance, I've been kicked off of Twitter more times than I care to count. I'm currently on Twitter right now, or X, but I could say something, tweet something, and the powers to be decide that I'm no longer there. YouTube demonetized us. My channel. We're still not monetized. We don't know why. It is what it is. At least they haven't totally banned me, taken me off, but that could happen. That's why we went over to Rumble, to have a backup plan and all that kind of stuff. There's no free speech in America. You pay a price no matter what. They intimidate you, etc. But when it comes to Ukraine, first of all, there's something called the Mirotvorets list, peacekeepers list. It's real. It's a hit list, meaning that the people on the list are marked for death, literal death, and they kill people. Daria Dugina, they killed the Russian blogger
Tatarsky. Was that
yes, Tatarsky? Tatarsky. They have a whole bunch of kids on the list, children from Donetsk and Lugansk, who have spoken out against the Ukrainians. So they put kids on the list, and they put their names, their faces, their addresses, and they want to kill them. It's a real deal. It's so real that every time I travel to Russia, we have to be aware of that. Before I went to Russia, a Ukrainian hit team went and killed a Ukrainian politician who had gone over to the Russians. They tracked him down, popped him with silenced pistol, killed him. And so it's something you have to be aware of. It's real. That has a chilling effect. For somebody like me who's dumber than dirt, it doesn't matter because I'm not going to scare. But for other people, they might say, I don't want to die for this cause because it's not and so they'll stop talking, or they'll modify their speech, or they won't go to Russia when they might have otherwise have gone to Russia. So they're denied the opportunity to educate themselves. But then, then there's this thing called the Center for Countering Disinformation. Now, the Center for Countering Disinformation came into being right after the special military operation began. I think around April of 2022. It's funded by the United States government. In fact, it's the brainchild of the United States State Department. They got together with the Ukrainians, with the Office of the President, Zelensky's people, and they created this thing. They were at the initial organizing meeting. They're there. They're providing the money. U.S. taxpayer money is going to do this. And one of the first things that the Center for Countering Disinformation does is publish a blacklist of people who are saying things that the Ukrainians don't want them to say. Now, this is an American-funded blacklist. That's U.S. taxpayer money going through the United States government, going to Ukraine, creating this organization to publish a blacklist of Americans. And then my name features prominently in this. By the way, the Center for Countering Disinformation then later on went into their daily Russian propagandist of the day. And I have set the record for being the guy who has won more Russian propagandist of the day awards, meaning that they single me out and say he's the most evil man on the planet. You can laugh about it. I'll get to you why it's not funny. Then I also win the propagandist of the week and the propagandist of the month. There's a reason why I'm at the top of that list. They don't like me. That's okay. I don't like them either. But then they turn around, and this is again with U.S. taxpayer money in a meeting where you have State Department people from the FBI there. They say that the people on this list are information terrorists. And we want laws to be written so that information terrorists are treated like real terrorists, right, and are subjected to all of the penalties so that we can hunt them down and we can kill them. That the penalty for what you're doing, information terrorism, is death. And they've passed the laws. And the U.S. government's going, we're going to fund this. Now, I'm not the only American on these lists. Others are too. You're now on it, Danny. You're marked for death by the U.S. government, who's put a hit out on you because it's U.S. money that's funding this. And now there's a new list that has come out. This one's attached to the Ukrainian intelligence service, and it's another hit list. I feature prominently in that one as well. I don't know if you've made that one yet, but these are kill lists, meaning that the penalty for speaking out is death. And it's not fake. Again, I don't want to exaggerate and I don't want to say it up, but I can say that back in May, there was moments when we had to alter what I was doing because the intelligence suggested that the Ukrainians were putting teams in place to do bad things to me. And on this trip also, we were worried about that in Sevastopol and going into the new territories. We had to be careful. I had to stay in a safe house. I had to move constantly because the Ukrainians had teams out looking for me so they could find me, fix me, and then finish me with artillery. For the crime of speaking, that's it. Speaking is a crime. Now, there are people out there, and I know this when I read the chats that I'm not supposed to read, that people don't like what I say. I support your ability not to agree with me. I think it's great that you disagree with me because there's a couple things. One, I mean, either you're never going to agree because your job isn't to agree, your job is just to be negative, then you don't matter. But let's say you're truly a thinking person and you don't agree with me. It means I'm not doing my job right. It means that I have to do a better job of articulating my point of view to win you over. I have to get my facts right. For whatever reason that you don't agree with me, I need to do a better job. We need to have a discussion, a dialogue. You know, the Louis Brandeis was a Supreme Court justice back in the 1920s. He was World War I in that period. But in 1927, he did a landmark case, and I could be getting this wrong, but I think it's Michigan versus the United States. I think that's what the case is, 1927. But basically, they wanted to suppress speech, saying that what people were saying was a threat to the national security of the United States, so they needed to suppress this speech. And Brandeis came out and said, that's not what we're about in America. I mean, you know, if you can honestly say that speech threatens the national security, yes, I guess it should be suppressed. But just because you disagree with something vehemently doesn't make it a threat. And the answer to bad speech is never suppression. The answer to bad speech is better speech, meaning that if you disagree with me, it's okay. Put your case out there. Win the public over. Let's have a discussion. That's how it works. That's why I get so mad at CNN and MSNBC and everybody today, because they talk about Donald Trump. I get it. You don't agree with Donald Trump. There's a lot that I don't agree with him about too. I think it's cool that we disagree. We should articulate this, but they don't want to say that. What they do is they say, we have to silence him. It's disinformation. Ladies and gentlemen, whenever you hear the word disinformation or misinformation, understand you're talking censorship because it doesn't matter. It's an idea. Don't call it disinformation. Just say that's their idea. I have a better idea. I have a better way of arguing. I can do this. I can win you over with the strength of my argument. The moment they say that's disinformation, what they're saying is, I can't beat that. I don't know how to handle that. I can't I can't overcome that. They're doing it better than me. So now it's disinformation and I need to suppress it. In America, we don't suppress anything. We shouldn't suppress anything. We should allow everything to be put out there. And if it's wrong, then we have to come up with better ideas, better ways of expressing our point of view and to win people over. And if we can't do that, then we deserve to lose. But we can't win by suppressing. That's not the way the United States works. And yet, when you go back to that chart that you put up there, that's what they're trying to do. What they're saying is everybody on this list has to be ignored, suppressed, because it's disinformation. They don't say why it's disinformation. They just say it's disinformation. It's misinformation. It's misleading. And, CNN, Trump, disinformation. Look, again, we could talk January 6th. I don't want to talk January 6th, but we can, if you throw that out there, there's a narrative. There's a narrative on each side. Let the narrative play out. What I don't like is when they say, oh, you're a January 6th guy. We don't want to hear from you. And I'm like, no, I'd like to hear their point of view. It's the same thing with 9/11. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole either, but there's people out there who have their point of view about Building 7, about this, about that.
Right.
My response is never suppress them. My response is lay it out there. I'll read it. I'll listen to it. I may not agree with it at the end of the day, but I'm never going to suppress you. You have a right to say what you're saying. You have a right to believe what you believe. And if you can articulate it better than me, then I shouldn't be surprised when more people agree with you than agree with me. And if I want to change that, then I need to come up with a better argument, a better use of facts. And this is what makes America better, because now we're having an intellectual discussion where facts matter. And, how you organize your thoughts matter. And then we can inform people, empower them with knowledge. It's wonderful. That's what American citizenship is supposed to be about. Empowered with knowledge and information, never suppress, always express. Wow, that's a Jesse Jackson type thing. I like that. Never suppress, always never suppress, always express. There, that's my new civil rights mantra.
Well, I think the case you were referring to, you said that was 1927. Did it have to do with the? It was definitely ruled over by Louis Brandeis. Was it Ruthenberg versus Michigan?
That might be it.
It was based on a longtime Communist Party activist who was charged with having a secret meeting, and he was teaching, educating, and he was being criminalized for doing that. And essentially, what Brandeis says was there needs to be a clear and present danger. There needs to be an emergency before there is repression over public discussion. And that's really important given all that you just said, Scott, because that is what is being criminalized here is public discussion. It's what we do. We talk about when we talk about China, like God, if I bring up Gaza or, if we bring up Palestine, that's one of the most censored topics out here. If we talk about what Israel is doing to Rafah, you put Rafah in the YouTube title, and guess what? You're demonetized. You put Gaza, you have Palestine, demonetized. I had one video with you where I went through a ridiculous appeals process just because there was language about Gaza and about the hospitals being bombed and the refugees. So that is what is being criminalized here, just literally the public discussion. And then, of course, Assange is probably the litmus test, given that that's what he did. He opened up a huge public discussion by revealing what was being kept secret, what shouldn't have been kept secret, which is information about what the United States is doing around the world, how it's handling its own internal election systems, and so many other things as well.
This is the funny thing about Assange. He was arrested because he facilitated the publication of classified information. And it was like, secret information, the video, the Iraq murder video of a helicopter taking out the journalists and things of that nature. The diplomatic cables, which embarrassed Hillary Clinton. That's the kiss of death. Okay. And they said, he shouldn't have done that. They never got the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Guardian, the other people who published it. They just went after him. But here's the thing. This past week, we had Mike Turner, of the Intelligence Committee chairman, do this funny little thing where he suddenly, in a panic, said, "Oh my God, there's intelligence that has to be released. I want every member of Congress to read this, and the president needs to declassify it. It's an emergency. We have to discuss it." And then he put the intelligence out there. But the way he did it is, it's Washington, D.C. So every journalist who was sitting in the bar that night, sipping their Macallan 12, watered down with something, they go, "Holy cow. Hey, you're my congressional go-to guy. What's Turner talking about?" "Oh, we have to have a meeting." "Okay, let's come to the bar and have some Macallan and we'll meet." So they come to the bar. There's this raw intelligence report that came out of Russia about, an anti-satellite thing. Boom. Next day, boom, raw intelligence, anti-satellite. They just compromised a source of intelligence. Now, you don't have to be pro-intelligence. CIA sucks. I get it. But, let's say that the United States wants to engage in meaningful arms control with the Russians. Now, you're the president of the United States and you're meeting with your team trying to come up with a negotiating position. And you have this raw intelligence that says the Russians are doing something. So you want to come up with a negotiating strategy to try and prevent the Russians from doing this. But you need to know how far along they are, what their real intentions are, et cetera. So you want to keep this intelligence coming to you. It helps shape policy. It's very important. That intelligence is gone. It's been burned, finished, boom. Because by releasing this information, the Russians went, "How the hell did they know that?" And then they went back and they reverse engineered it. And they said, "Well, we had a meeting on January 15th. 26 people were at that meeting. We've looked up, 3 of them made phone calls, All right, shut down all those phone lines, change all these phone numbers, divert from these cables." And suddenly the people in the intelligence community who were saying, "Hey, we finally got into this meeting. We finally are getting stuff." They got nothing now. And so now the president's saying, "How do we update our negotiating strategy?" "Mr. President, we got nothing." "What do you mean? We had that great intelligence." "Not anymore. It's gone." "Thanks, Mike Turner. You just screwed America because you're playing stupid politics." Now, is Mike Turner going to go to jail? He facilitated the release of classified information. He's not going to jail. Are they going to do an investigation and find which congressional person spoke to the media and put them in jail? No. Are they going to put the Washington Post and New York Times reporters that met with these congressional people and got that information? And this is top secret information. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, it's above top secret because the source was probably communications related, very unique. It probably had a whole bunch of code words put after it. I'm not even allowed to say the code words today. That's how sensitive it is. When you sign the document, it says, this is the program. This is the name of the program. I'm not even allowed to say the name of the program. That's how sensitive. They just blew that. It's gone, finished. And nobody's going to jail. But Julian Assange is in prison. He's going to be extradited in the United States where they're going to kill him. Literally. If he comes to the United States, he's dead man. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. He will never be free again. He's going to lose his wife and his kids. For what? For nothing. There was just a huge crime committed last week. A huge crime with national security implications. I just told you what it was. Not a single person will be prosecuted for that or held accountable.
Yeah, no, the double standards are just, not only are they so stark, but they're everywhere. It's from the lack of accountability for those who are actually committing the crimes. I mean, someone like Alexei Navalny is praised. I mean, this not only is this a heavily corrupt, wholly corrupt figure, but he's one who, if you just take a cursory look of who he is someone that the same establishment figures who always like to decry that they are against quote unquote corruption, authoritarianism, when they make it up somewhere, they look away when it's not, when it's Ukraine, when it's Azov, when it's Navalny, they look away from their fascist and just outright just ugly dehumanizing politics, and also their actions, which are meant to hurt, meant to bring war to Russia. They look away from those things. Meanwhile, people like Julian Assange, actual journalists, Navalny was not a journalist, he was not, but actual journalists like Assange, they are suppressed. People who are just trying to tell the truth, who are trying to get the truth out there, that's who is being targeted through all these lists.
It's worse than this, Navalny. Look, everybody who's watching should remember 2016 and how Trump colluded with, Russiagate.
Right.
Trump colluded with the Russians to steal the election. And it all turned out to be a lie. Every aspect of it turned out to be a lie, but it doesn't matter. Americans were rightly incensed because nobody wants people interfering with our elections. Now, the Israelis can buy an election every election cycle and nobody says anything, but it's the Israelis, so it doesn't matter. But if the Russians were buying election, let me put it this way. If the Russians did what the Israelis are doing, we'd shut it down in a heartbeat. If the Russians came out, Anatoly Antonov came out today and had a press conference and said, yeah, we got $100 million on the table right now to buy Congress. You either support Russia or we're going to primary you. People would say, you're kicked out of the country. You can't do that. You can't buy. AIPAC, which is an extension of the Israeli government, has come out and said, we got $100 million to buy Congress people who are pro-Israel. And everybody's going, that's okay. It's not okay. But let's talk about Navalny for a second. In 2007, 2008, Navalny participated in a U.S.-funded effort to interfere with Russian elections. We literally bought an opposition and we tried to do a color revolution to prevent the swap from taking place. It is direct interference. In 2011, 2012, we interfered in Russian election to keep Vladimir Putin from becoming president. You remember Hillary Clinton talking about opposition groups. Joe Biden flew to Moscow in March of 2011 and met with the opposition and said, it's not a good thing for Russia if Putin comes back into power. You need to stop this. Could you imagine right now the Dmitry Medvedev flying to America and meeting with everybody who's against Biden and saying it's not a good thing for America to have Joe Biden be your president again. You guys have to stop this. And you think we'd all sit there and go, well, thank you for coming and talking to us and blessing us with your insight, Mr. Medvedev. We really appreciate it. No, we tell them, pound sand, get the hell out of our country. Don't interfere with American elections. But we interfere. Navalny played an important role in 2011, 2012, funded by the CIA. Remember, you showed the videotape. His deputy is trying to get $10 to $12 million from the British so that they can have an impact on that very election, interfering with their election in a meaningful way. And in 2021, Navalny was supposed to be involved in throwing a monkey wrench into Putin's constitutional reforms that were taking place, where he was redoing the Constitution to make Russia iron-proof, against American interference. And America knew that if Putin pulls this off, we're done. The day of us buying an opposition is over because Putin will have put in all the checks and balances necessary to make sure that we can't do it. Navalny was supposed to interfere with that. And his last act is, by dying, is to help create. See, everybody knew that Navalny is done as an opposition figure. In fact, is Navalny.
He was gone. I mean, he disappeared. Even if you didn't even know anything about it, nobody was paying attention.
But for instance, there's the former head of the New Economic College who fled in 2013. He's now teaching somewhere else. He's well regarded and everything, but he's in contact. He was a big Navalny supporter. He said that Navalny realizes he made a mistake. He shouldn't have gone back. He's sorry. And he would like to have a chance to leave Russia, and he would like to come out, and he would never cause problems again. His day as a opposition figure. And this is a guy who's talking to Navalny. Navalny quit. Navalny said, I'm done. I'm finished. I don't want to do this anymore. They broke him. They broke Navalny. And now the West is going, but you can't be broken. We invested too much into you. You're a symbol. We have to make you a symbol. So here's a broken man. Here's the deal. And the Russians were actually, this came out of Bild. I don't know if it's true or not, but a major German newspaper published it, that there were ongoing negotiations to swap Navalny, who is a known CIA asset, with the guy in Germany who killed the war criminal. They assassinated him. He was a guy who ran over the heads of Russian soldiers during the Chechen War, and all that. So a patriotic Russian, according to Putin, went in there and took matters in his own hand. No, he was a GRU assassin. He's one of the Russians. He belongs to them, and they wanted to swap. So there was talk about getting Navalny out for this guy, and maybe throwing the Wall Street Journal journalist in the mix to get this swap going. So there's talking. Putin talked about this in his discussion with Tucker Carlson. But here's the problem: if Navalny comes out, there's no symbol. There's nothing. He's a defeated man. He comes out in a spy swap that has basically the United States saying, "Yep, he was a spy the whole time. Yep, we were interfering with Russian elections." Can't have that happen. Where are we today? We have Navalnaya, his wife, Yulia, who's now emerged as the new opposition leader. She has stepped up. She says, I am going to continue Navalny's thing. New face, new momentum, new talk, etc. So now we reverse engineer that. In order to make that happen, he had to die. And if you think this was an accident, you have no idea what you're doing. And again, that's why I called it the Frankie Five Angels moment, Godfather 2, end of the movie. You betrayed Caesar, and but now to keep your family, because remember this, Navalny's daughter got a free education in Stanford. Michael McFaul. I just want to connect the dots here. Michael McFaul gave her a free education. Family. Yulia Navalnaya is now going to be the new godfather. She's the head of the family. How did this happen? None of this would, you can't undo the education, but I can guarantee you that Miss Stanford educated Navalny daughter will have all doors shut in her face if Navalny comes out and says, I was a CIA stooge. Because what happens to people that admit that they were a CIA stooge? They disappear. They go, they open up 7-Elevens in the morning. And that's it. They mop Popeye restaurants at night. That's the jobs they get because nobody will hire them. And she will never get a job. She'll be ruined. The wife will be ruined, destitute. His son will be ruined, destitute. No future for them. Right now, the family will be taken care of. And that's the important thing about Frankie Five Angels. My family will be okay. Don't worry, Frankie. Everything will be all right. But it meant that Frankie had to die. Now, I don't know how Navalny died. What I do know, what I strongly suspect, is that in 2020, when he went down on the airplane, it was a self-induced overdose of drugs designed to create a medical thing. And the German medical data backs that up. We need to know more about if somebody visited him. There's rumors that people visited him 2 days before. They say they gave him medicine. What was it? Look, the Russians are holding on to the body. I think they're doing a very detailed chemical analysis of what's going on here. But I think you're going to find that Navalny killed himself and that the message was sent. Tom came to him and said, don't worry, Alexei. Everything's going to be okay. Your family's going to be okay. And Navalny did the right thing. He's dead now. And with him dies all the secrets. And his wife now is taken care of. She's been elevated. The cause has a new, and it was all timed perfect for the Munich Security Conference. She was ready. She was front loaded. She was right there, ready to rock and roll. Have you ever seen a grieving widow so happy? I haven't.
Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.